Good afternoon. So in terms of a skill-based curriculum, I don't know how many of you have been asked to generate a skills-based curriculum or how many of you have been tasked with creating reporting features around skills-based curriculums. But in order to actually talk about them, I'd like to back it up and get some common terminology down. So this slide, I showed it this morning, but now I have a little more detail on it. In the upper left-hand corner, it starts off with standards. Standards are statements about what a student is expected to be able to do. It represents consistency. Standards, I don't know which standards you're using, but standards generally represent a minimum. They are the least. So for our analogy, we're going to talk about standards as building codes. So what are building codes used for? Has anyone ever built a building? Built a school, built a house? Yes? Okay. Some of us have. It's kind of like getting a mortgage. It's a, life experience. So what happens with building codes is that they're designed for safety. They say things like outlets have to be 10 inches off the floor. It's a minimum. It does not tell me what my building is supposed to look like. It has nothing to do and no impact on those pieces outside of the consistency expectations. So there are some towns, for example, where I can't build over a certain height. It'll say, oh, it can be 30 feet tall. So when I am working with building codes, if I were to go up to an architect and I were to say, hi, I'm going to build a building, she would say, that's very nice. And I would say, I want you to build a blueprint for me. She goes, that's nice too. And I say, I want it to exemplify the building codes. She will look at me like I am strange. She will say, I'm not sure what that means. What do you mean? Do you want a room full of outlets? I'm not really sure how to build a building that exemplifies the building codes. The same thing is true for standards. Standards represent a minimum. I can build a building and make sure it meets code. I can build a curriculum and make sure it meets standard. But it is exceptionally difficult for me to build a curriculum from standards statements because they have no identity. They have no purpose or theme. They are simply there as a minimum. I say this because I have been experiencing in my profession many schools coming up to me and saying, Marie, we would like to build a curriculum that exemplifies, and then they name some set of standards. And I, like the architect, am confused. What do you want me to do? You became the architect for the whole session right here. You're doing great. How do I do that? So standards are a minimum, and there's a tool we use to organize standards or skills and have them make sense in curriculum design. And that tool is called a year-long context. And I'm going to show us today how to build one. That's our goal. A year-long context is just a way to take something like a set of skills or a set of standards and organize them into a given year as when will I overtly teach these and when will I assess them and get evidence of them for the purposes of having a faculty sit down and go, how are the students doing on these skills that we said we wanted to get across? So we would be examining student work, getting information about how are the students doing on what we're saying is the bare minimum. That's what a year-long context does. So what's a curriculum? I have to tell you, I've taught graduate school in curriculum instruction and assessment And very often, my faculty